You ever wonder how a vinyl record's made, going from little bits of plastic to a final listenable record? Today we're taking a tour of Porehouse Pressing to see everything that goes into making one of these records. Before we get into it, thank you so much to Porehouse for giving us a tour of their pressing plant. If you're ever in Raleigh, they've got a venue and a record store to check out in downtown. So I'm here with
Adam Lindstedt from Porehouse, Porehouse Pressing, Porehouse Music Hall and Record Shop.
Could you tell me a little bit about the Porehouse and about how you got here and all that?
Yeah, for sure. So the Porehouse opened in 1997. I took over the Porehouse in 2012 and been running it since then. In 2019, in November, so just before COVID, that's when we opened up the record shop upstairs. So the record shop ultimately saved the live music venue since we were able to sell records online during COVID when we couldn't do a show for a year. During that process, we saw that pre-orders for records that we were trying to buy to sell to the public kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed, like sometimes up to a year. And then we learned pretty quickly that the production time for getting a record made had expanded to like a year or more from the 8-week turnaround that's typical.
Yeah.
So we started looking more and more, becoming more terrified that live music was never going to come back day by day. So we're like, what else can we do with our knowledge and the people that we already serve? And we decided to jump into manufacturing, and here we are.
Could you tell me a little bit about some of the bands that you've made records for?
Yeah, one of the very first ones we made was a local band from back in the day that was super popular called PKM. One of our favorite records that we've made so far. Probably since we've started production, we've pressed about 350 different titles. They're all starting to kind of blend together. We've done things with Cunning Linguist, Charlie Hunter, Shagwoof, Fonte, Foreign Exchange, Nina Freelon, Shirlette Amons. We've also done a lot of jobs for national and international acts. Right now we've got Schottky's 50th anniversary on the press that we're running.
Awesome, yeah, sounds cool. Do you want to go ahead and get into like the actual manufacturing process?
Let's do it. All right, so we're over at our manual press over here. And this one, we move all the parts around by hand. On our automatic press, which we'll look at in just a moment, we've got little robotic arms that move things around so we don't burn our fingers so much. So this piece of equipment right here is called an extruder. We load up PVC pellets in here. Right now we're running a job on clear red. And here's what they look like, little baby record eggs. So the way this works, there's a big barrel here, and inside of that barrel is a screw that turns and moves the PVC that we load up in here up through the 3 heating zones we have. How that works, pull out this big old chunker. So those pellets melt down into this type of material, which we refer to as purge. And then that purge, we turn into a donut. And then this is what goes into the press. And this is what actually becomes the record. So if you want to come around here, you can see Lacey's running the press right now. So she currently has one in the press at the moment. She's making a donut right now in the extruder. You can hear it running. And then when she's done with that, she'll move that into the press and first put a B-side label down on the bottom, then the puck, and then the A-side label on top of it. And then she'll run a heating cycle and a cooling cycle. So as the press is closing from the bottom, it moves upwards. If we're adding heat in there from our boiler, so we're injecting steam around 300 degrees into those molds, and then that helps heat up the material as it's squishing to evenly spread out to make a 12-inch record. So once the steam cycle's done, cold water goes in, and that helps cool those molds back down to solidify the record. If we didn't put the cold water in, when we'd take it out, it would be like a floppy piece of bacon. It wouldn't be hard like a record is. So you can see right here, this is a dud record. It's got what we call flashing around the side. So when it comes off the press, we always want to move material beyond the edge of the record to help backfill the grooves at the very beginning here. So when it comes off the press like this will move to our trimmer station and cut all this excess flashing off to get yourself a perfectly round, playable 12-inch record.
Very nice, very nice. I like the red.
Very pretty. It's like making giant like gummy bears all day.
Yeah.
We're using like cool colors that in clears, it's like, it looks like candy.
It does.
So this over here, this is our air compressor system. So anything on the presses that have little green hoses, those are controlled by compressed air, things that go up and down, side to side, except for the press itself. The press itself is controlled by hydraulics. But if you want to come around this way, this is our cold water processing station over here. So we got 2 tanks. This one here has a glycol mixture, which is essentially an antifreeze. And then our tank over here has our process water. That's what goes in and out of the presses. So this tank here circulates the glycol between here and our chiller that's outside that we can't see right now. But think of a glorified air conditioner that's 15 feet long, 10 feet wide, and 10 feet tall. So what that does is makes this nice and cold. And then that one, you can see on our temperature here, it's currently at 52 degrees. That's where we want it temperature-wise when it goes into the press. But if you come around here and you can see how the mechanics of this work, you'll understand why we got to cool it back down before we send it into the press. So these are the molds. And that's where we're injecting the steam and the cold water into. So if we're putting first the 300-degree steam into here, it's going to be super hot. It goes away, then we immediately put that cold water in. So it's coming in at 52 degrees. By the time it's in there for 12 seconds or so, that water is now 120 degrees. It needs to be cooled back down before it goes back into the press. Otherwise, it's not going to do its job solidifying that record. So the way that we do that, you see that black rectangle over there where those pipes are going in and out, that's called a heat exchanger. So essentially, the glycol tank on this side has pipes going in and out. Our processed water has pipes going in and out right next to it. And in between there's cooling coils. So the cold liquid in here cools those coils down, and then the processed water gets cooled down as a result of those cooled coils. This is our automatic press over here. James is getting a job set up as well, but this, again, it's the exact same components as that manual press. It just has all this automation that moves things around rather than burning our hands moving it around manually. So when the press, the donut will come into the press with the labels above and below it, and then this here will drop a pin down to hold everything in place. And then it retracts back, and then the press closes, does the same thing as the other press. And then this arm will, when it's done, it'll swing in and pick up the record and move it over to our trimmer here and drop it there. This top plate will close down, it'll spin. We heat this knife to 200 degrees back here. That'll cut off all that flashing we talked about a moment ago. This arm will swing in once the record's trimmed, pick it up and move it over to a cooling stack right here. And then every few records on both presses, we drop a cooling plate. So it's good to have extra weight on a plate, and we leave them there on the records. And we leave them there for 24 hours to cool. Otherwise, the records kind of naturally want to start cupping like that. So I'm sure you've seen records before where you have to push the center label down on the turntable and it bounces up and down. On modern records, a lot of the time when you see that, it's from not letting things cool long enough. That makes sense. It can happen from other things too, but that's a primary way that it happens. So when we're actually making a record, we start out, run a couple as the machine's warming up, and then from there, we do a full listen. So we put it on a turntable and score the record and figure out, is this a passable record, by listening for audio defects that shouldn't be there. So anything that we hear, we write it down. If it's something that's correctable, we'll come back to the press, change some settings, get it dialed back in, and keep doing that over and over until it sounds right. And then we start the job. And then every 20 records that comes off, we take one off, listen to it to make sure that it still sounds good. There's nothing new that showed up that would make it not sound good. And we rinse and repeat. That's why we listen to it so many times by the time it's done. We can go over here, we can look at our boiler and our recycling system. Cool. So here's a couple bins of flash from jobs we were running yesterday. Like I said, this is all the edge that we cut off around the records, and this all can get recycled. It gets ground back up and reused in other pressings. We always separate things by colors, like all these bins out here have, here's some blue and a black with some other stuff in, because the black is really powerful and will overcome all those other colors. This is our granulator. This is where we actually grind up the records. These records themselves, they were rejects. They don't have labels on there, so I can put this entire thing in here and grind it up. But if we do have a center label on there, we have to punch that out because it's got paper in it. If we grind up paper and it ends up back in records, you're gonna hear it and it's not gonna sound good. So we make sure to remove that before it goes in. And that happens, we remove the center labels over here on our hole punch. So we load up all the records that we are wanting to get the labels off here. The record will slide down and a big piston will push a big cutter down and cut out the center label, and then we end up with coasters. We use these at the Porehouse. We also sell them in little packs too, so you can take them home. And then when you punch it, you end up with a record that looks like that. This is our QC room over here. So this is where we come to do our full listens. 99% of the time we're sitting in here with headphones on. in a notebook, listening diligently and taking any notes about any audio defects that we hear that need to be addressed at the press. Let me show you the boiler room real quick, and that'll be it.
Okay.
So this is the boiler. This is where we generate steam. So we got our boiler tank here, and then this is our called our feed water tank. So we pump water into here, and then these pumps will move the water into the boiler tank. There's a big pilot light, an industrial size flame, and then a big fan that blows at that heat to blow heat into the water tank, and then that compresses the water into steam. So once we've got steam, the steam will travel up that white pipe. That's our steam header. You see it go right through the ceiling, and then that travels all the way back to the presses. You can see this big grid of white pipes coming towards us in the middle of the room. That's all condensate return. So when the press is done with the steam, it shoots it back into those pipes as water, and it travels through those pipes back into this black tank where we keep our water. That gets moved back into the tank, turned back into steam, rinse and repeat thousands and thousands of times until we've got all of our records made.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. And could I get your name, by the way?
Sure, it's Lacey.
Lacey?
I'm Adam's wife, so I do everything along with him. But mostly I do all of our sales. I work with all of our clients, all of our vendors, and then I press records and then
Awesome.
do it on. So packaging, this is the last part of the QC process. And so what we're doing is we're checking the last person to actually look at it before it goes into everything. So we're looking for any stitching, any problems. We're looking at the labels, and this one looks good. So we put it in the outer sleeve. And of course, we're checking the jacket too, because things happen, and just making sure that the package is all right and complete. This one has an insert with it, so we put that in there. That one's done.
Awesome.
And then I just keep going over and over and over again. Check everyone and
Once again, thank you so much to Porehouse for showing us around their pressing plant. Hopefully y'all learned as much as I did. And yeah, subscribe to the WKNC YouTube channel if you want to see more music-related cool content.